It happened the night we opened our mother's will. My brother didn't even wait for the lawyer to finish. He stood up, fists clenched, and punched me right in front of everyone. All because she left everything to me. But what he didn't know is I had spent the last 6 months preparing for this exact moment. In less than 24 hours, I froze every one of his bank accounts and handed over evidence to the IRS. He cried, he begged. But this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice, for my mother, for myself, and for every silent victim of family betrayal. The photo sits in a silver frame on my bookshelf. Me, Mom, and David, laughing under a sunlit tree. Our arms wrapped around each other, his hand on my shoulder, like he was the protective older brother everyone dreams of. I used to stare at that picture when life felt heavy, a reminder that family, at its core, was supposed to be safe, solid, sacred. But now, when I look at it, I wonder if the lie started the moment the shutter clicked. Growing up, I was the good girl. I followed the rules. I cleaned up after David's mistakes, literally and figuratively. When he dropped out of college, I helped him get back on his feet. I co-signed the loan for his first car. I drained my savings so he could start his can't-fail startup. He promised he'd pay me back as soon as it took off. He never did. At the time, I didn't care. I told myself, it's just money. He's family. What's mine is his. But that was before I saw the spreadsheet. He'd left his laptop open while showing me a pitch deck for a new investor. I wasn't snooping, just scrolling to find the file. That's when I found it. Capital breakdown, internal only. I clicked. Right there in bold font. Unreported loan from Rachel. No need to disclose to Mom. The words stung. Not just the secrecy, but the casualness of it. Like I was a line item on a budget, not his sister who bailed him out when no one else would. Still, I said nothing. I told myself he just didn't want Mom to worry. Maybe he planned to tell her later. Maybe he was ashamed. I gave him every excuse in the book. Because admitting the truth, that he was hiding things from both of us, meant admitting the bond I believed in wasn't real, and I wasn't ready for that. So I forgave him, quietly, like I always did, but forgiveness without accountability is just enabling in disguise. It wasn't until a random TikTok popped up on my For You page that I started to question more. The creator listed signs of emotional manipulation within families. They guilt you for setting boundaries. They make you doubt your memory. They call you too sensitive when you speak up. I paused. Too sensitive. David used that phrase on me more times than I could count. Anytime I got upset about him borrowing money, about him missing Mom's birthday dinner, about him snapping at me in public, it always ended the same. You're just overreacting, Rachel. You're always so damn sensitive. Back then, I believed him. Now I saw it for what it was. The next week, I visited Mom. She looked tired, pale. I'd been sending her money every month to help with groceries and medical bills, ever since her insurance stopped covering certain medications. But when I opened the fridge, it was nearly empty. "Mom, where's the food?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She laughed it off. "Oh, you know me, I don't eat much. I gave some of the cash to David. He's got a big deal coming through. Just temporary." My stomach dropped. She was living off cereal and canned soup, while David, who drove a new car and posted steaks on Instagram, was using the money I sent for emergencies. Still, I didn't say anything, not yet. I didn't want to stress her. But a week later, while helping her fix a glitchy app on her laptop, I stumbled on something else. She had a bank account I didn't know about. It wasn't hidden, just not linked to the usual online dashboard. When I clicked through the security settings, my breath caught. Authorized secondary user, David Morgan. Not me, not a joint setup for emergencies, just David. I didn't confront her. I wanted to. I rehearsed the words 100 times, but some small part of me still held out hope that it was a misunderstanding, that there was a good reason, that my family wasn't what it was beginning to look like. That night, I cried. Not the angry kind, the quiet, empty kind that comes when your world starts to unravel, and you realize you've been living in someone else's version of love, one where loyalty is expected but never returned. I kept telling myself I was overthinking, that I needed to trust, that David would make it right. But deep down, something had shifted, something that would never shift back. The room was still when the lawyer began reading the will. Every breath felt too loud. I sat with my hands clenched in my lap, staring at the polished mahogany table as if it could protect me from what was coming. I didn't expect much, maybe a small share, maybe nothing. That was fine. I wasn't here for the money. I came to honor Mom. But then he said it. To Rachel Morgan, I leave the entirety of my estate, including the house, savings, and personal accounts. Out of gratitude for her care, loyalty, and sacrifice. Silence. David's face twisted before the lawyer could finish. His chair screeched back. I didn't even have time to react before his fist came down hard across my cheek. The sound was wet and loud. Gasps exploded around the room. Aunt Carol stood. Someone shouted his name. I just sat there, blinking, the sting spreading across my face like fire. He had hit me. He had actually hit me. The lawyer fumbled to pause, papers scattering. My cousin grabbed David, pulling him away, as he yelled, "You manipulated her. You turned Mom against me. You're a goddamn thief." I couldn't speak. My mouth filled with the metallic taste of blood. Not because of the punch, but because something inside me had just ruptured. I walked out of that room without saying a word. Outside, the cold air sliced through me like glass. I sat in my car, locked the doors, and finally let myself fall apart. I sobbed so hard my ribs ached, not just from what had happened in there, but from what I remembered. When I was 12, David had pushed me down the stairs during an argument over a video game. My arm bruised from shoulder to wrist. Mom saw. She told me to say I slipped. "He didn't mean it," she whispered. "He's under a lot of pressure." I learned that day that silence was love, that protecting the family meant erasing your pain, but not anymore. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "I want to open a full audit of my mother's financial history," I said. "Everything. I need to know what else he touched." It started with bank statements, ones Mom never showed me. Then credit card logs, tax returns, medical bills. Piece by piece, a picture formed. A picture I didn't want to see. David had been siphoning money from her accounts for years, quietly, systematically. When Mom got sick, he convinced her to sign a temporary power of attorney so he could manage her medical payments. Only he didn't use it for that. He used it to refinance the house she left me. He took out a private loan against it and used the funds to invest in crypto during the bull run. But here's the twist. The crypto tanked. The money was gone. Worse, the documents were signed with what looked like her signature. But I knew her writing. These weren't hers. they were traced copies. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by files, legal pads, screenshots. Rage had turned to something sharper: focus. My years in risk analysis kicked in. I stopped crying. I started connecting dots. First, I pulled metadata from Mom's scanned documents. The timestamps were all within a few hours of each other, suspicious for such varied paperwork. Then I checked the IP addresses of the email exchanges between David and the loan officer. They originated from his office, not from Mom's home. He had forged her digital approval, used her illness as cover, lied to the bank, to the family, to me, and he almost got away with it. I opened Mom's file on our shared Google Drive. Hidden beneath folders of recipes and medical scans was a subfolder titled Letters. I'd never seen it before. My breath caught as I opened it. Inside, dozens of unsent letters, all addressed to me. In one, dated just weeks before she died, she wrote, "If you're reading this, I'm sorry. I let David take too much. I was scared of confrontation, and I put that fear above protecting you. I see now that was a mistake." My hands trembled. I wanted to scream. I wanted to disappear. But most of all, I wanted to act. I reopened every financial account tied to the estate, requested transaction logs, re-verified beneficiary data, logged into every platform Mom had touched, and that's when I saw it. A silent alert triggered on one of the accounts. David had attempted a transfer posthumously using a backup login I didn't know existed. He was still trying to drain what little remained. I froze the account immediately. Then I called the bank. Then I called the IRS. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done being the little sister who stayed quiet. I was the executor now. And the game had changed. It started with a number. A wire transfer flagged during one of the audits showed an unusual routing trail. One that didn't match any of Mom's known banks. Curious, I traced it through layers of encryption until I landed on an offshore account registered in the Cayman Islands. The account was under Mom's name, but it had been opened just 8 months before she died, using a virtual P.O. box and a business ID I had never seen before. She never mentioned it. But David had, once, in passing. He'd joked about protecting assets offshore over drinks at a barbecue last year. I'd laughed then. Now I wasn't laughing. I dug deeper. The offshore account showed multiple small transfers, each under $10,000, to avoid triggering automatic reporting. But one recipient kept popping up. A company called Nova Vera Solutions, LLC. It sounded legitimate, a tech name, clean. But when I searched for it in state registries, I hit a wall. Then I remembered something from a forensic accounting workshop. Shell companies often share mailing addresses. I cross-referenced Nova Vera's address with public records. That's when I found it. The listed contact was Alyssa Green, David's ex. They'd broken up years ago. The last time I saw her, she barely made eye contact with me at a Christmas dinner. She disappeared from his life soon after, no explanation. Apparently, she hadn't disappeared at all. I ran her name through my AI toolset, the same one I used for market risk analysis. The system scanned her online footprint and flagged a dozen interactions between Alyssa and David over the past year. Encrypted email chains, shared cloud folders, but one decrypted log stopped me cold. It was a chat between David and his accountant. In the thread, he wrote, "Mom's fading fast. If we don't move the rest this quarter, we'll miss the clean exit. Alyssa's prepped. You know what to do." Another message. "If Rachel catches on, we pivot to phase 2. play dumb, say she's overreacting. I didn't cry right away. I just stared at the screen, heart numb. But then it hit. The betrayal was no longer vague or speculative. It was written, documented, clinical. They were planning her death like a financial window. I walked to the kitchen, sat on the floor, and let the cold tile ground me. The tears came slow, not because I was sad, but because I was done being surprised. This was no longer about misunderstanding. It was war. And wars are won with intelligence. I called Alyssa. I didn't expect her to answer, but she did, on the second ring. Rachel, her voice was guarded. I know about Nova Vera, I said, and the offshore account. I also know David's been using your name to hide transactions. I'm not calling to threaten you, I want to help. Silence. Then she exhaled, a long, shaky breath. He said if I ever spoke up, no one would believe me, she whispered. He has pictures, texts, said he'd ruin me. That was the final piece. David had used her, and now he was blackmailing her. I don't need you to testify publicly, I said. But if you give me access to the shared folders, confirm the emails, and help me reconstruct the transfers, I'll get you legal protection, immunity. I have lawyers, real ones. Another pause. Then, okay, but I want it in writing. Done. Alyssa sent me everything within 48 hours. The documents confirmed everything. He'd funneled over $600,000 from Mom's estate into crypto wallets, then washed the losses through Nova Vera. Some of the money even came from my own trust account, a detail I hadn't discovered yet. I assembled a team. My attorney recommended a forensic accountant who specialized in fraud recovery. He brought in a private investigator with SEC experience. We created a clean timeline of transactions, built a digital evidence room, and stored backups in 3 separate cloud locations. I even hired a retired IRS consultant to help me prepare for what was coming. David thought he was playing poker. I was building chess. He had no idea the scope of what I was collecting. And I wanted to keep it that way. In the meantime, I reached out to the family accountant, Mom's former tax preparer. I asked him one simple question. Did you know David opened a trust in my name without my consent? He nearly dropped his coffee. The man didn't know. Which meant David was forging documents under my identity, too. This wasn't just inheritance fraud anymore. It was identity theft, wire fraud, blackmail, possibly even tax evasion on a federal level. And it wasn't just about justice now. It was about precedent. People like David operate in shadows, behind the guise of family, counting on shame and silence to protect them. But I wasn't silent anymore. I wasn't Rachel the peacekeeper, the helper, the fool. I was Rachel the strategist, and I was coming for every single dollar, every single lie, every single cover he built. He thought he was the puppeteer, but I was cutting the strings. The invitations were handwritten, sealed in cream envelopes with gold-pressed initials. I wanted everything to look elegant, respectful, clean. Because appearances matter when you're about to destroy someone in front of an audience that once worshipped them. It was our first Christmas without Mom. I told everyone it was a memorial gathering, a tribute, a way to remember her warmth and grace. I rented a small event hall near where she used to volunteer, had it catered with her favorite dishes, lit candles in every corner, even placed a framed photo of her near the entrance beside a guest book. They all came. David arrived late as usual, dressed too sharp for grief. He greeted people with charm, performed just enough nostalgia to keep suspicion away. I watched him work the room like a politician running for office, unaware the polls had already closed. When dessert was served, I tapped my glass. "Before we finish," I said, "I'd like to share something Mom recorded, something she wanted us to see when the time was right." I pressed play on the projector. The room dimmed. The video flickered on. It was grainy. Mom sitting in her bedroom chair, a soft scarf wrapped around her neck. She looked tired, but her voice was steady. "If David ever touches the estate," she said, "if he lies, manipulates, or harms Rachel in any way, then Rachel, this is your permission. Protect what's yours. I'm sorry I didn't say it sooner." Gasps filled the air. The camera panned slightly. She held up a folder labeled "For Rachel Only." Then the screen faded to black. No one moved. All eyes turned to David. He stood frozen, pale. A muscle twitched in his jaw. "That's fake," he said, voice cracking. "She never recorded that." I stepped forward, calm, collected. "Actually," I said, "this was stored in a secure drive, time-stamped, password-protected, and confirmed by our family attorney." I held up a printed copy of the folder, and this contains every transaction, every forged document, every email thread, including ones between you and your accountant discussing how to drain her accounts before she passed. David lunged forward, just a step, but someone grabbed his arm. "You're insane," he hissed. "You have no idea what you're doing." "I do," I said, eyes locked on his. "And so does the IRS." Silence snapped like a whip. "I sent them everything," I continued. 3 weeks ago, they've been reviewing your records, and I believe—" The front doors burst open. 2 uniformed officers entered, followed by a federal agent flashing a badge. "David Morgan," one asked. "We have a warrant for your arrest. Fraud, identity theft, tax evasion. Please come with us." He went pale. No, this is a mistake. I have rights." They cuffed him gently, as if they'd done this dance before. He didn't look at me as they led him away. He didn't have to. The room stayed silent for a full minute after they were gone. Then someone whispered, "Oh my God," and the dominoes began to fall. Family friends pulled me aside to apologize. Relatives once loyal to David sent texts that night, saying they had no idea. Even Aunt Carol, who defended him for years, showed up at my door the next morning with muffins and tears. But David didn't cry until 3 days later, when the charges were read in court and he realized the full scope of what was coming. Fines, investigations, jail time. He wept. Not for Mom, not for me, for himself. The system he built was crumbling. The mask was gone. The empire of silence and intimidation had collapsed under the weight of truth. And I didn't gloat. I didn't cheer. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, holding the framed photo of Mom from the event. "I kept my promise," I whispered. "No more silence." The weight in my chest didn't vanish. Justice doesn't erase grief, but it does give it shape, a place to settle. The next morning, I woke up to an alert. Someone had posted a thread on Reddit titled, "My brother tried to steal my dead mother's inheritance, so I destroyed his life one spreadsheet at a time." It wasn't mine, but it told my story. The comments exploded. People shared their own tales, of siblings who stole, of parents who played favorites, of secrets that festered for decades. I read every one. I wasn't alone anymore, and neither were they. But just as I began to breathe again, I checked one last account. An old investment fund of Mom's that I had assumed was drained years ago. There was a new transaction, dated 2 days ago, unauthorized, untraceable. Outside the systems I had locked down, and this time it didn't lead to David, it led to someone else. The courtroom smelled like old wood and stale coffee. Sunlight filtered through the high windows, casting stripes across the floor. I sat near the front, my hands folded tightly in my lap, knees bouncing with a rhythm I couldn't stop. David sat across from me, flanked by lawyers who now looked more tired than confident. His face was thinner, paler. The charm he once wore like armor had long since cracked, revealing nothing but fear underneath. The judge cleared her throat. "In light of the evidence presented," she said, "this court finds Mr. David Morgan guilty of fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. The defendant is ordered to forfeit all remaining shares of the Morgan estate, pay restitution in the amount of $846,000, and will serve a sentence to be determined in federal court." For a second there was silence. Then I heard it, applause, soft at first, then louder, scattered but genuine. Not from strangers, from people I knew, people who, for years, believed David, people who thought I was being dramatic, ungrateful, disloyal. Aunt Carol nodded at me with misty eyes. My high school teacher, Mrs. Landon, squeezed my hand as I passed her. Even Uncle Greg, who once told me to stop causing trouble, stood with both hands clenched, nodding like someone finally seeing a clear sky after years of fog. Outside, reporters gathered near the steps. I didn't speak to them. Justice wasn't a headline. It was a quiet exhale I'd been holding since the night Mom died. The IRS investigation had gone deeper than I imagined. 3 more shell companies tied to David were uncovered, each with tangled webs of transactions, some crossing international borders. The government wasn't just interested in recovering the money. They wanted to make an example. David's bail was denied. I heard later that he wept in holding, not for Mom, not for me, for himself. A week after the trial, a letter arrived. The handwriting was unfamiliar but shaky. It was from my father. We hadn't spoken in over 20 years. He left when I was 9, disappeared into a life without us. Mom never talked about him. I stopped asking, but the letter said this: "Rachel, I watched the trial. I saw everything. I wasn't a good man back then, and I've spent 2 decades running from that truth. But seeing you stand in that courtroom, I realized something. Your mother was right to shield you. And I was wrong to ever leave you behind. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm proud of you, Dad." I didn't cry, but I held that letter for a long time, not because I missed him, but because some part of me, a part I never acknowledged, finally felt seen. Still, the victory didn't feel the way I thought it would. I didn't celebrate. I didn't post online or give interviews. I went home, opened the storage closet, and pulled down a box labeled family. I took out every photo, wedding shots, birthday parties, Christmas mornings, and quietly removed everyone that included David. I kept only the ones with Mom. That night, I sat on the floor, surrounded by fragments of a life I no longer recognized. I found a picture of me and her on the porch, drinking iced tea, laughing about something I can't remember. That's when it hit me. I would never laugh with her again. The tears came without sound, slow and steady, like rain on a window that had been dry for too long. I didn't cry for David. I cried for all the versions of myself I had to kill just to survive him. And when I woke up the next morning, something inside me had shifted. Not anger, not bitterness, clarity. I opened my laptop and created a podcast channel, Healing After Financial Betrayal. Each episode would be a story, some mine, some submitted by others. Stories of siblings who stole, parents who lied, spouses who manipulated. I wasn't the only one. The inbox filled faster than I could read. I recorded the intro at my kitchen table with nothing but my voice and a borrowed mic. This podcast is for the people who lost money, time, and love, but found themselves. 2 weeks in, the episodes had thousands of downloads, but it was the email that stopped me cold. Subject line, "He did it to me too." The sender was someone I didn't recognize. A woman claiming to be another victim of David, years before he ever touched our mother's money. She had documents, messages, stories I'd never heard. And one line at the bottom that chilled me. "You exposed what he did to your family, but what if that was only the beginning?" The air in the new town smelled different, cleaner, calmer. There were no memories in the sidewalks, no ghosts in the grocery aisles. I bought a small house with white shutters and a creaky porch swing. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, paid for with the salary from my new job and the quiet consulting work I picked up helping others protect their finances. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. I no longer kept my phone on during dinner. I didn't answer unknown numbers. I stopped explaining myself when I said no. My life had rules now. Not rigid, not cruel, just clear. No unexpected video calls, no financial favors, no questions about the past unless I brought it up first. People either respected that or they didn't stay long. And I was fine with both outcomes. Some mornings I'd make tea, sit on the porch, and listen to the wind move through the trees. It was the kind of quiet that didn't feel empty, just full of space. Space I never knew I needed. I thought healing would be louder. I thought it would feel like a breakthrough, triumphant, cinematic. But really, it was small things. Replacing a cracked mug, choosing curtains, laughing at a joke I didn't have to explain. And still, the podcast grew. What started as a personal project became a community. Emails poured in from around the country. Women, men, teenagers. Some had been stolen from, others just silenced for too long. One wrote, "I never knew there was a name for what my sister did to me, until I heard you say it." Another, "Your story gave me permission to stop making excuses for my father." By the 10th episode, I wasn't the only voice. I invited guests, therapists, survivors, lawyers. We unpacked patterns, named the unspeakable, laughed when we could, cried when we couldn't help it. Eventually, I launched a financial literacy course specifically for survivors of abuse. It wasn't just about budgeting, it was about agency, boundaries, power. I taught them how to read contracts, how to protect their credit, how to say that's not okay without guilt. The demand overwhelmed me, so I built a team, other women who'd lived through betrayal and rebuilt anyway. We held monthly workshops, online seminars, safe space meetups, and still, some nights I missed Mom. I missed the way she hummed while folding towels, the way she always knew when I needed tea, not advice, the way she whispered, "I'm proud of you," like it was a secret just for us. But I also knew that if she were here, she'd be on that porch with me, laughing at the way I couldn't figure out how to hang wind chimes. Her picture sat on the shelf above my desk, beside a small candle I lit every Sunday. She never got to see this version of me, but she helped build her. And then one morning, I found it. Tucked in the inbox of the podcast account. Subject line, "Thank you." The message was short. "Hi, Rachel. My name's Mia. I'm 14. My mom listens to your podcast every week. She finally left my stepdad last month after 5 years. She says you helped her see things clearly. We live in a shelter now, but we're safe. I want to be like you when I grow up. Thank you for saving my mom. I stared at the screen for a long time. There it was. Not revenge, not money, not even justice, but purpose. I wrote back. Mia, thank you for writing. You and your mom are incredibly brave. Tell her I said she's not alone, and neither are you. I'm so proud of you both. When I hit send, I didn't cry, not like before. This time I smiled, and in that quiet little house, in a town where no one knew my story unless I chose to share it, I lit a candle beside Mom's photo and whispered, "We made it."